Hello, good day, everyone. Welcome to the podcast From Zero to Hero. I am your host today, Tony Mudd, and I am super excited that you are joining me on the podcast because you could be doing anything with your time and energy today, but you're here listening to the podcast. Thank you so much. Remember that this podcast is all about becoming the best version of yourself, no matter if it's in your career, relationships, or just life in general. It's about getting the most out of life and pushing yourself to grow to see who you will become. So before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to some of our amazing sponsors, including Safe Touch Family Counseling. They are doing incredible work helping friends and families heal from trauma and grief within the community. If you're looking for someone to speak to, or you know somebody that needs somebody to speak to, please reach out to Safe Touch Family Counseling. I'm sure that they'll be glad to help you. Next up, we have Goodies Banana Pudding, which is the best banana pudding that I've ever had in my entire life, and I love their honey glazed donuts. So if you're a person that loves donuts, you love banana pudding, you would truly enjoy what they have to offer. So please reach out to them and give them a try. So today we are tackling something and getting into some information, something that we all know too well. Today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, or AKA what I call it, fake it till you make it syndrome. Have you ever had a thought or a feeling in your life where you felt like you didn't belong? You felt like you didn't look good enough, you didn't have enough, or you didn't know enough people, and you felt like you had to fake it till you make it until people found out the truth, or until you got to where you needed to go to get to what you needed so you could be the person you needed to be. And the reason that we're going to talk about this is because I know how this feels, because I've been there several times in my life. Where you hear that persistent voice whispering in your head, you're not qualified. They're going to find out that you don't deserve this. They're going to find out that you don't belong here. They're going to find out that you don't know as much as they think you should know. And all of these voices, these negative thoughts that constantly just go in your mind. And for me, imposter syndrome, or fake it till you make it syndrome, is not just about doubting my abilities. It's about wearing a mask to protect myself, pretending that I have it all together when deep down inside, I feel like I'm falling apart. My grandmother used to call it putting on face. And I have put on face more times than I can actually call it. Smiling when I felt sad, acting confident when I felt weak, and trying to play a part when I wasn't sure that I could actually feel that role, And I'm sharing this with you because I know how heavy it is to wear that mask. I know how exhausting it is to be somebody else. And the longer you wear the mask, the more it wears you down. And it doesn't just take a toll on your mental health. It also impacts your relationships, it impacts your careers, and ultimately it impacts your sense of self. That's what it impacts. For years, I thought that wearing a mask helped me. I thought that it was a shield, something to protect me from judgment, something to protect me from rejection. But over time, what I realized is that it was doing the exact opposite. Wearing a mask fueled perfectionism in me. I felt like I always had these incredibly high standards, leaving no room to make mistakes for myself. Even when I achieved something great, I couldn't allow myself to feel proud because I had to move on to the next goal because I was chasing this ideal that did not exist. And it was extremely draining. Pretending to be somebody takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. I remember I would come home from work and feel completely burned out. Not from a lot of the work that I had done, but the actual effort that it took to maintain face. Practice smiling when I was sad. Practice smiling when I was angry. And then there was the isolation. I remember periods of times in my life where I actually pulled away from the people I love, pulled away from the people I trusted because I was terrified for them to see through the mask and judge me for the real me. That loneliness made me feel even heavier, like I was trapped in a role that I couldn't escape. But the worst part about this, the worst part that I experienced, is that the mask kept me from knowing myself. I missed out on the opportunity of discovering who I needed to be for myself. It wasn't like I was hiding from other people. It was more like I was hiding from myself. After going through this process, I eventually hit a breaking point where I had to ask myself, who am I beneath the mask. When I stripped away all the filters, the expectations, the pressure to perform, what I found shocked me. Beneath the mask, I wasn't somebody who was inadequate, unworthy, undeserving. I was somebody who was real. I was somebody with strengths, flaws. I was somebody who was still learning that had full potential. And then it hit me. I wasn't afraid of failing. I was afraid of succeeding. I was afraid of stepping into my true self, letting other people see who I really was and what I was really capable of. That's when I started to realize that I needed to overcome imposter syndrome. And it wasn't about faking confidence. It was actually about becoming confident. And that process required me to break down and rebuild, and the real question is, how did I overcome imposter syndrome? How did I unmask myself? And I can tell you right now, it wasn't easy. It was a true process, and it's a process to this day. I mean, think about it. Think about how often you play the role, how often you put on face, you do things that you're uncomfortable with, but deep down inside, everything is saying, don't do that, don't be that person. But you keep playing that role to make the other people around you feel better about themselves. You keep playing that role to save peace. You keep playing that role to be the peacekeeper. I'm going to let you know right now, real peace comes from telling your truth. Some conflict is good. You need some conflict to have peace. I don't want to be a peacekeeper if that means that I have to hold my feelings and hold the way that I feel back just to make sure that somebody else feels comfortable. No longer will I feel that way. And I've come up with 5 steps that help me overcome my own imposter syndrome in my own life. Step number 1, and this is a good one. The first thing that I did is that I allowed my inexperience to keep me curious. I allowed my inexperience to keep me curious. So often in life, we all want to be the experts. We want to be the person that knows the most. We want to be the person that talks the most. We want to be the person that gets all of the eyes. We want to be the person that everybody wants to follow. And one thing that I realized is when I started something new, whether it was a job, a project, a personal goal, I used to feel ashamed about not knowing as much as I thought I should know. I thought I had to fake expertise to gain respect. But when I realized something, curiosity is actually a superpower. Curiosity comes from inexperience. Curiosity comes from seeking information. Once you get the information, you get the knowledge. And once you get the knowledge, you get answers. So instead of pretending to know it all, I started asking questions, observing, staying open to learning. Being curious shifted my focus from I'm not good enough to I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. I'm here to gain something from this experience. If you are new to something, embrace it. Allow your inexperience to be embraced. Embrace your inexperience. Ask questions. Ask the questions that you are afraid to ask. Let your inexperience work for you. It is the bridge to becoming the expert. It is the bridge to becoming the person that you want to be. So allow your inexperience to keep you curious. Number 2, the second thing that I did is that I got comfortable saying, I don't know. For the longest time, admitting I didn't know felt like I was admitting failure. But when I finally start saying I didn't know, but I love to learn, something incredible happened. People didn't judge me. They actually started to respect me more. They appreciated the honesty and they were more willing to share their knowledge, share their information with me. And to be honest, this took me actually having to humble myself and allow others to lead me, allow others to teach me. I had to be teachable. It reminded me that nobody is perfect. And you shouldn't expect perfection from yourself because that is something that none of us have. So number 2, make sure you get comfortable saying, I don't know, if you truly don't know. Number 3, the third thing that I did was I gave myself permission to make good mistakes. I gave myself permission to make good mistakes. For a long time, mistakes used to terrify me. Honestly, they did. Because if you think about mistakes, typically a lot of people don't like making mistakes because mistakes come with pain, they come with regret, they come with just bad feelings dependent upon your actual perception. Mistakes actually used to terrify me. I used to think that they were actually proof that I didn't belong to be in that space, or I didn't belong to be in that job, or I didn't belong to be in that area, or I didn't belong to get what I got. I used to actually believe that those mistakes was that they was actual failures, and they're not. They're not at all. But I've come to see it differently. Your mistakes are actually evidence that you're trying, evidence that I'm moving forward, evidence that I'm making progress, evidence that I'm actually learning. That's what I started to realize. Breaking free from imposter syndrome is probably one of the hardest things that you're going to do and one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But making good mistakes taught me that each mistake became a chance for me to learn, for me to grow, and to give myself some grace. So if you are scared to mess up, remember that mistakes are not failures. They are only life lessons that you need to get to the next level, to the next version of yourself. That's all. So which brings me to number 4. The fourth thing that I did to overcome and to break free of my imposter syndrome, or faking it till you make it, is that I found my tribe. You have to find your tribe. One of the most transformative steps that I took was surrounding myself around people who uplifted me, people who made it okay for me to be me. I sought out mentors, colleagues, friends who saw the potential in myself, even when I couldn't see it for myself. My tribe gave me the freedom to be vulnerable, to be my authentic self. They reminded me that it was okay to show up as myself with my flaws, my quirks, my problems, all of my issues. If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, you must find your tribe. You must find that tribe that is there to build and lift you up, not to break you down. You must find that tribe that is there for you when times get hard and when times get good. You must find your tribe because they will help you unmask and grow to your true self. Tip number 5. Finally, I had to break free of the imposter syndrome and unmask myself. This is probably one of the hardest steps that I've had to do in my own process, but it was also one of the most freeing. Taking off the mask meant showing up as I was, no more pretending, no more performing. If I'm upset, I'm upset. If I don't like something, I don't like something. And that's just the way it's going to be. I started small. I started sharing my struggles, sharing my truths. And I think that is one of the biggest things that you can do when you're talking about imposter syndrome. You have to be vulnerable enough to share your truth. You have to be vulnerable enough to make the people around you a little bit uncomfortable so you can share your truth, so you can make yourself feel safe. You have to, because you're worth it. I had to start practicing this on a daily basis, whether I was at work, whether I was at home, whether I was in my community. No matter where I was, I had to start practicing this on a daily basis. And this is not an easy task. It's not. Whether it's at work, whether it's at home, we all do it. From the CEO to the floor staff, everybody does it. But the truth, the real trick is to break free from it. The more I practiced unmasking, the more I started to realize that people didn't want the perfect version of me. They wanted the real me. They wanted the person with the problems, the person who's made mistakes, the person who's there to tell the truth. They want the person who's there to be authentic. And honestly, I wanted that person too. I wanted to be that person. And so I had to start working to build that person because that's who I am. Imposter syndrome really thrives on fear, but it doesn't have to control you. It does not have to control you. And the only way to break it is to break the fear and tell your truths. You have to tell your truth. Don't let it control your life. You are enough. The journey to overcome imposter syndrome isn't about faking it till you make it. It's about telling your own story. It's about embracing your imperfections. It's about letting yourself be seen. So let me ask you a question. Who are you beneath the mask? For me, I found somebody powerful. Somebody real, somebody worth knowing. And I believe the same is true for you. You are enough. That's it, y'all. That's all I have for you all today. I truly hope you enjoyed the podcast today of overcoming imposter syndrome. I truly hope that this podcast serves you on your journey and your process to overcome imposter syndrome in your own life. If this video or this podcast resonated with you, I hope you will share it with somebody who you feel like that needs to hear it, that it will bring them a little light to their life. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Until next time, peace.